Hello and welcome back to Bookmarked Chronicles. Today we are going to talk about Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn. This is the second book in the Legend-Born cycle. You all can thank Vina. She sent me the ARC and allowed me to review this without having to pay my own money for it. Thank goodness, because I did not enjoy it. So I read Legend-Born, I believe, last year, and after I finished it, I was going to rate it originally, I think 3.75 stars. I do have a full review, so I'll link that in the cards and in the description. However, the longer that I sat with it and thought about it, the more that I disliked about it. So I have since changed my rating on the StoryGraph. You're probably wondering why, if I dislike Legend-Born, why I continue to read the series. And it's because, honestly, I was curious. I wanted to see how Tracy Deonn was going to continue the story that she created, how certain plot points were going to go, and most importantly, I wanted to see more of the root crafting and Bree connecting to that side of her. While I am in the minority of people who didn't love Legend-Born, there are a good amount of people who did not like it and were not planning to read Bloodmarked. And like an idiot, I decided to volunteer because my curiosity got the best of me, so here we are. So I don't typically annotate. It is something that I've wanted to get into, but thanks to this book, I now have an entire annotation system. You can see that I tab this up quite a bit. There are different colors for different things, and I will probably do a separate video on that, but just take note of this. Red is pretty much any time that I am annoyed, right? And then when I ran out of red tabs, those transitioned to pink. So there's a lot of that happening. And then yellow, I decided to use for things that I actually like, things that I enjoy. There are only 5 of those, and they stop pretty early on. So just to give you an idea of where we're going. If you are a Legend-Born stan and you can't handle any sort of criticism of this series, then this is probably not the video for you. I rated this book 1.75 stars, and I thought I was going to give it something a little higher, but the entire last quarter of this book just really drove it into the ground for me. So the prologue of this book is 24 hours after the events of the end of Legend-Born, and then when we jump into chapter 1, we are 1 month ahead. So pretty decent timeline there. When I read Legend-Born, I decided to keep track of how many times Cell threatened Bree's life. And in this one, I decided to count how many times Cell was being a dick for no valid reason. It looks like I stopped after 11, so I'm sure it was probably more and that I might have missed a few. But if you don't know already, I hate Cell with a burning passion. If you're a Cell stan and you can't handle criticism, not the video for you. So it's 1 month after the end of Legend-Born, and the plan is that Bree is going to finally meet the regents and this high council of this society and whatnot. I'm being a little vague just in case anyone is watching this and has not yet read Legend-Born, but obviously there's a plan, and the plan goes to shit for multiple fucking reasons. But like I said, I gave this 1.75 stars, and I've decided to DNF the series. I had already decided that at page 176. This book is 550 pages. Yeah, things went downhill pretty quickly for me. There's really not much more that I can say without spoilers, so if you have not yet read Bloodmarked and are planning to, this is your official spoiler warning. So as with most of my reviews, I will start off with the characters, starting off with Bree, of course. In book 1, I liked her. I felt for her. I was rooting for her. I wanted the best for her. I wanted that to continue, but Bree made some choices in this book that made me dislike her, that made me not really care for her anymore. Some of the things that she does and says just didn't make any fucking sense, and I understand that she's a teenager. However, I say this so often on my channel, being young is not synonymous with being fucking stupid, and Bree did some stupid shit. As for Bree's best friend Alice, I like Alice. A lot of people are talking about how the character of Alice was a missed opportunity to have another black girl in the series, to have more black representation, and I can't say that I disagree. I do appreciate that Alice is Asian and that she understands all the things that Bree is going through, but with the way that this story is set up, it just really would have been nice to have more of that representation, more of that black girl magic, because I love Alice as a character. She's awesome. At this point, I like her more than I like Bree. It was definitely a missed opportunity, I think. But I am glad that Alice has a little bit more of a presence in this one at least, so I'll give her that at least. Mariah was a UNC student who is also a root crafter, and I did like that she reappears here. But again, I wanted more. Like I said, one of the things that I was looking forward to the most was the root crafting community, and we did get a little bit of that, but also the things that happened when we got that just didn't really work for me. Same for Patricia. Patricia's only in like 2 scenes. One of them is a FaceTime call, and the other one she's being captive, so didn't love that. William, I like William. I liked him in the first book as well. He's one of the few people that seems to actually care about Bree as a person, so I think that's why I like him. He's a good side character. Nick, I don't care, like, at all. Not even a little bit, so there's that. Selwyn Kane, I know the girlies love him. I don't get it. I don't see the appeal. At the end of the day, it's fuck Sel. Every day, all day, that will never change. I understand that some people feel bad for him in this book, and I don't at all. Lark, I like him as well because he also seems to care about Bree as a person, but also is loyal to her because she is the crown scion, so I guess I'll give him that. I also picked up on some flirting between him and William, and I'm here for it. Erebus. I have mixed feelings about Erebus because when he first came in, I really liked him because he didn't like Sel. And I enjoy seeing Sel have his ass handed to him, thrown around a little bit, told he's a failure. I like it. I'm here for it. I knew something was off about him though, but I'll get to that a little later. I'm not a fan of Valak. However, if you know me, then you know that I'm not a fan of the like 1,000-year-old dude who is attracted to or flirting with or going for a teenage girl, you know? It gives me the ick. So I don't love him, but mixed feelings on that one. And then we have Lou and Hazel, and I like them both. I think they both provide that feeling that older black women just have, you know, that comfort, that wisdom, that support, and also scolding if necessary. And I feel like Bree didn't necessarily appreciate them as much as she should have, which is a little frustrating, but those are all the characters that I have written down. So let's jump into the plot. So I've got my handy dandy notebook and I basically wrote down different plot points. So let's go back to the beginning. It is 1 month after Bree has pulled Excalibur, and the plan is that she is going to perform the rite of kings in front of the regents, and she is going to basically take claim to the throne of this secret society, whatever the fuck. And Bree is under the impression that they are keeping her identity a secret because they don't want panic, right? Now, at one point, I had a note that said, are they keeping her identity secret for her safety or because she's black? Well, I'm sure you can guess which one it was, right? So very early on, Bree is trying to sneak out of the lodge, which she has now moved into full time. She's supposed to be down here for school, right? Like she's supposed to be taking classes. Did we just forget that? Or, oh, okay. Just wondering. And then we meet Erebus and Lark, and Erebus is verbally whipping Sel's ass, and I loved it. I loved it. I wish we had gotten more of that. So then we go to the funeral for all of the fallen Legendborn and the regents. Well, one, they hold on to the lie that Nick and his dad are in hiding for his safety, and they also announce, which is a shock to almost everybody else, that they believe that there is a traitor among them, which is true. It's Nicholas's daddy. But they say it's Sel, so that was interesting. And because I don't like Sel, I didn't particularly hate it, so there's that. At some point, Bree starts essentially being possessed by her ancestor. Not Vera, no, Arthur. You know, creepy old white dude taking over the body of a teenage black girl, it just really didn't sit right with me. Felt like foreshadowing, felt like something was gonna go wrong, and we'll get to that later because that's essentially what the fuck happened. But anyway, Bree starts using Arthur's memories to sort of almost dreamwalk, I guess, but in these memories, she is Arthur and Lancelot is present, and somehow she's able to call Nick into those memories, so then they are communicating, having moments and whatnot, which like is fine and everything, but the way she used them wasn't exactly helpful, and you know, just didn't always make a ton of sense. So Bree finally goes to perform the Rite of Kings, and she is drugged, kidnapped, and interrogated repeatedly. There was a line in book 1 where Sel says that he is going to hand Bree over to the regents and let them experiment on her. And that's basically what happened. And I do not have to explain to you that the United States has a history of experimentation on black bodies. And if I do, you might want to take a seat and research. But it was fucking gross. So finally, Bree sort of starts to understand what's going on, and she also actually calls out the Order for their racism, which I have to admit I was not expecting. I didn't think it was gonna happen because I feel like in book 1 we kind of tiptoed around it, and so I'm glad that it actually happened. But the fact that she still wanted to claim the throne feels like there's a disconnect there. Because you know that there is a systemic problem here, and yet you still want to take it over? Why is that? I think that's a conversation that needs to be had. It's also great that it is acknowledged that someone in this society was a rapist. However, there was an emphasis on that, I feel, which makes sense because, like I said in my review of Legendborn, what I dislike about this series is that essentially the foundation of Bree's story is racism and generational trauma, but the way that it's discussed is odd to me, I guess, because it's either, you know, the regent saying, oh, this is a claim without proof, despite the fact that Bree is the literal proof, or it's like Nick and Sel apologizing for it and Bree accepting it when it's not really her apology to accept. And I mean, it doesn't make it better, it doesn't change it, it doesn't really help the story, and like if that's supposed to make me like Nick or Sel more, it doesn't, you know. So then we also find out that the regent's plan is to kill Nick. They're already looking at the next person for the line of Lancelot, and they just want to get rid of Nick. So obviously that sends both Bree and Sel into a panic. We learn that Alice is able to resist mesmers because of something that Bree did in book 1. I don't really remember the details of that, but just a little note there. So Bree escapes from being held captive. There are lieges. I don't know what rank that is in the Arthurian legend, and I don't really care. But there are lieges who are loyal to her as the crown scion. However, one of them was not actually loyal and tried to kill her, like literally gave a demon access to her. But then that demon tries to consume her root and it burns her. Bree, Alice, William, and Sel are on the run from the Order. Bree is still using Arthur's memories to communicate with Nick, and at one point they're in a memory and they start making out, and it just felt like the wrong time and place. Like, I understand you miss your boyfriend or whatever, but like, you're on the run, people want to kill you, demons are hunting you, this Order is hunting you, and you're having a little makeout sesh with your BF, and that just feels fucking stupid. And then Sel asks her why her hair is messy after a makeout session with Nick, and he gets pissed, which is fucking weird. Literally with Sel, this entire fucking book was like emotional whiplash, and it pissed me off because one minute he's mad at her, then he's flirting with her, then he's screaming at her, then he's declaring his loyalty to her. My guy, pick one. So then Bree figures out where Nick is, and she and Sel are gonna go to him, and so because Sel is Merlin and he has Merlin speed, he puts Bree on his back and they're running through the fucking forest, and I was like, oh my god, I didn't realize that I was reading Twilight again, but okay. So Sel and Bree find where Nick is. However, the Order, Merlins, Erebus, and them have also found them. And so, okay, and so there's a Merlin who is Asian, and so I was like, oh, okay, cool. There are other people of color within the Order. So is it just the Southern chapter that's racist, or do they also have a problem with him? Or does it not matter because he's a Merlin and he's half demon, you know? So I just have a little question about the logistics there. But anywho, Zhao tries to kill Nick, but his dad gets in front of him, and so Lord Davis dies. And in immediate retaliation, Nick beheads him using his little twin blades, because he's a sign of Lancelot. And Bree and Sel are all worked up about it. And oh my God, that's not Nick, and he would never. And oh my God, I can't believe he killed someone. Baby, do we realize what world we're in here? That's not surprising. People die in this world. Somebody has already tried to kill you. And on top of that, if somebody murdered my father in front of me, best fucking believe I'm going to avenge his death. Why are we surprised? Why are we fixated on this? Why are we worried about that in this moment? Seems like the least of our worries, no? After that happened, Nick and Sel make eye contact, and Nick's like, yeah, I see you, but I'm out. And he just decides to go off and frolic in the fucking forest or whatever. So now Bree and Sel both feel abandoned by Nick, and I don't really get it, but I don't get a lot of things in this series, so whatever. Right, so when Sel was captured, he had been handcuffed, so he cannot call either. And so after the whole thing with Nick, and Nick leaves, Sel and Bree have to run, but Erebus found their car, so he knows that they're there. So Erebus is now chasing them. Bree shares her route with Sel so that they can escape. And I don't know, something about Bree sharing her route with a white man gave me the ick. I did not like it. It made me real uncomfy. Yeah. Well, okay. This felt like it was supposed to be a reveal, but I feel like this was obvious. So Valak discovers that Bree has been bloodmarked, meaning that Vera made a deal with a demon, and that is why there is this generational curse on Bree's family. But I felt like that was fucking obvious. Did we not know that already? Did we not know that was a bargain? One daughter at a time for all time. Didn't we know? Like, we saw it happen in book 1. She made a deal. She made a bargain. Doesn't feel like news to me, but okay. Oh, right, okay, so we go to Volition, and Volition is essentially, it was previously a plantation. Formerly enslaved folks and their families bought this plantation and made it a safe space for them. So it is a safe space for root crafters, right? And the thing is, anyone who is not a root crafter, and particularly pretty much anyone who's not Black, cannot enter Volition without the permission of a root crafter. And so William, Alice, and Sel all get invited into Volition because Bree is there, and mixed feelings about that. But also, like, this place is protected by the ancestors. Like, there is a protective dome over it, and it is literally powered by their ancestors, right? I get it. I get where she was going with that, so I don't necessarily have a huge issue with that. However, Bree is there, Mariah is there, along with Lou and Hazel. So they help Bree call on her ancestors. So it goes generation by generation, starting with her mother. So she has this really beautiful moment to reconnect with her mom. And then she goes further back, you know, her grandmother, her great-grandmother, all the way up to Vera. And the reason for Bree calling them is because she's trying to figure out if it is possible for her to control her root in an offensive manner rather than it always sort of flaring when she's in mortal danger and trying to defend herself, right? But because Bree is not getting the answers that she wants, she starts screaming and berating her ancestors, particularly Vera. I understand her frustration, I do, and I understand that the weight of this world is being thrusted upon her and she's only 16, but we're talking back to our ancestors now. The thing is, you know how like there are like, you know, skits about like white people talking back to their moms or calling their mom a bitch or something like that, and the black people in the room are like, oh no, I don't want no parts. This would never go down. Like, I could never do this. If I did that, my mom would do this, and da da da. We're yelling at our ancestors. We're denouncing our ancestors. We're screaming at our. Is this what we're doing? It didn't sit right with me. I did not like it. And then what essentially she decides to do is to burn down her ancestral plane, which feels fucking ridiculous. I don't know why we thought that was a good idea. I understand that you're frustrated, but just because you're not getting the answers that you want, that's not an excuse for how any of that went down. Not only that, but she also burns a hole through the protective barrier over volition, putting everybody else in danger. Nope. Because you're not just upsetting your own ancestors, you are upsetting all of the ancestors. And that just, that's not something to be proud of. So yeah, I guess the next day or a couple days later, it's her birthday, she turned 17. And so Cell wants to take her outside of volition to show her nature. They start making out. And sweetie, did you forget that you're in a relationship? Am I supposed to be proud of you for this? Am I supposed to be happy for you? Am I supposed to be rooting for you? Because now Bree's a cheater and Cell's a homewrecker, and everybody's just fine with it. Her and Nick have not officially broken up. They've never had that conversation, and and I get that Cell is supposed to be endgame, but what the fuck was the point of this love triangle in the first place? So that happens. Then they get back, and they're getting ready to go back into volition, and Erebus and the Merlins are there. They found them, so it becomes a fight. And this is where shit went really left for me. I mean, I was already pissed about the whole ancestor thing, but then Bree has to let Arthur in so that she can fight against the Merlins of the Order, and essentially what happens is that he possesses her and takes over her fucking body. Like, he kicked that bitch out. And I'm just like, how the fuck? On top of that though, they're in the midst of the fight or whatever, somebody grabs them from behind and is trying to pull them into volition. It made sense. Rational fucking thinking here, thinking about where you are. It was Alice, Arthur, and Bree together as one, whatever, take Alice and throw them over their shoulder. She knocks into something and is passed the fuck out. And I was like, you denounced your ancestors, burned down your ancestral plane, let Arthur possess you, and almost killed your best fucking friend. Cool. So then Erebus puts chains on Bree/Arthur, which was a bad idea because it's volition. Our ancestors were formerly enslaved. You putting chains on one of their descendants in this place is obviously a bad fucking idea. And Hazel and Lou said that, and they did it anyway. And so the ancestors fucking attacked because as they should. Because Bree has been essentially kicked out of her own body, Arthur is taking over and she's like stuck in his dreams or something. And so in the dream though, at one point, Lancelot and Merlin, aka Nick and Cell, start talking to her and she's like, I don't believe it, this isn't real. Of course it was fucking real. And in order to get her out of the dreamscape, Cell has to consume her root. Mind you, I said before that a previous demon tried to do that and it burned them, so I don't know. Also, something about dragons, because Arthur Pendragon and dragons never die, and I don't fucking know. She like becomes a dragon or some shit, kind of like Zoya in Rule of Wolves. So that's when she burned down her ancestral plane, which is whatever. So it turns out that Erebus, who I had fucking suspicions about him, and I noted that on page 113, I felt like something was off about him. I didn't know if he was going to betray her, or if he was going to betray the Order. But it turns out that Erebus is the demon who made a bargain with Vera. So he's old as fuck. So Bree wants him to teach her how to use her power, and he's like, well, you realize that once you were at your prime, I'm going to consume you so I can have that power. And she's like, yeah. And then she decides that she wants to make a bargain with him as well. Now, if I had accidentally put my best friend in a fucking coma, I would bargain to save her life. What does Bree bargain for? To save Cell. Because after he consumed her root, basically his demonic half took over, and so he is succumbing to demonia or whatever the fuck. First, she wants to see him, and then she wants Erebus to take Cell to his mother, who is apparently alive and wants her to help him figure out how to fight off his demonic self or whatever. You chose to save Cell instead of Alice? You didn't want your best friend to live? I must not know a damn thing about friendship. Just a few other things that I noted down. Bree's hair starts to turn gray in the front and she doesn't realize it's because of her memory walking with Arthur. I felt like that was obvious, but that's just me. Cell had been mesmering her, not letting her know how much his demonic side was taking over, and she's like so upset and heartbroken and blah 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 and whatever. Representation of Black people. There's an ongoing conversation about this where people have noted that like Bree's dad is barely visible. Alice could have been a Black girl, and there is one lead, Samira, was that her name? I can't remember because she's in like 2 scenes and then she fucking disappears. So, you know, school, is that a thing? Are we taking classes? Or what are we here for? Okay. Also, I am someone who loves enemies to lovers. It is my favorite trope of all time. But because I hate Cell so much, I couldn't enjoy the banter, the flirting, the going back and forth, and I could have. However, I still don't understand how we are forgiving this man who threatened Bree's life and threatened to kill her and wanted to kill her and was actively pursuing to kill her multiple fucking times. I don't get it. He never apologized. The whole, oh, he called me Cariad and I don't know what it means. I'm afraid to look it up. And then she finally asks him and it means all these things, darling, my love. And he's like, I mean them all. Motherfucker, you tried to kill me at least 7 times because I stopped counting after 7, but I know it happened at minimum 7 times. Never fucking apologized, but he calls her pretty at the fucking gala and everything's forgiven? I don't understand, and I will never understand. Like I said, 1.75. I will not be reading any more books in this series, and I truly don't understand the obsession with it. I feel like there was an opportunity and it was just missed over and over and over. This series isn't for me, and that's totally fine. I mean, if you like it, cool, I guess. Have fun with the rest of the series, but I'm bowing out. I'm done. I think that there was just a lot of disappointment for me overall with not only the story arc, but with Bree as a character. And I know a lot of people are gonna be mad at me for saying that, but that's how I feel. It is what it is. So let me know if you've read Bloodmarked or if you are planning to. Otherwise, that's all I have for you today, and I will see you in the next video.